Someone asked me about guitar EQ. What do you do to it? How do you tweak it? Well, it's kind of the $64,000 question really, but I'm going to explain it by using some spectrum analysis. Now this is something that's built into Logic Pro X, and it's actually also on GarageBand for iOS. Really useful. I've got two amps here. I've got my Roland JC120, which is a transistor amp here, and I've got a Vox AC30, which is a valve amp. So there's not really a huge difference in the clean sounds, it's what happens when you distort them. That's where the difference comes. But what I'm going to do is, on the left hand side of your screen, you can see the two spectral analysis displays, the top one being for the AC30, the bottom one being for the Roland. They are mic'd identically, two separate mics but exactly the same mic into two channels of the same audio interface, so you can assume that these mics are identical. So if I just play a chord, you can see on the top display there a wave of some kind. You think, well, what is it? Well, if I play a bottom G, which is third fret on the E string, the left hand sort of wave there is showing 100 Hertz on the display, because that's how many cycles there are per second on that low G. But if I play that low G at 100 Hertz, you can see all sorts of other stuff above it. These are the harmonics contained within this note. So you'll get 100 Hertz, there's one at 200, and then there'll be one at 300, which is essentially your D. Those other two notes are contained within that one note, and lots more besides. And of course we've got the plectrum movement. Every time I play with the plectrum, you get a little sort of treble sort of buzz as you actually pick the string. With a finger, just a fingertip, you get fewer harmonics. If I rolled the tone all the way off, I've actually got quite a simple sound there. So if I just play a chord, there's lots going on there, masses. Now if we look at the frequency range of something like that, if I just went slightly higher for example, you can see there's a lot going on in the middle to the top. Lots of spikiness going on at the top there. So really we're in the sort of range 2 to 4 kilohertz with the top end. So if I roll that off, you can see that all of that 2 to 4K is being rolled off by my tone control. Similarly, if I change pickup from the neck to the bridge, you'll see an awful lot more of those harmonics. It's a more harsh sound. It's just made up of a different harmonic balance. Now that's the Vox AC30 on clean. Now if I were to put this, if I were to turn this up now, this is a newer AC30 with a preamp. You get more and more going on at the top, because actually what distortion does is it creates harmonics that are higher up in your frequency spectrum. Notice there isn't a huge amount above about 7 kilohertz. There's really nothing above that at all. That's the reason why it's perfectly fine to put a Shure SM58, for example, in front of your guitar amp as opposed to a condenser mic. But a condenser mic will be a bit more refined and will be better at the bass end than a Shure SM58 would be. Now if I swap over to the JC120, the bottom amplifier here, we're now going to switch to the bottom spectral analysis there. You will see that there's a bit more bass end on this one because we've got more showing on there. Now I sort of had the bass control in the middle on the AC30 and the JC120, but the Jazz Chorus 120 as it's called has a bit more bass end for the genre. Now if I turn the treble up here, you'll see there's an awful lot more going on at those sort of that top end there. If I turn the bass up similarly, So it really depends what you want when you're mixing. Really, as I've said in other mixing videos, try to avoid anything below 100 Hertz on any instrument apart from those that need it. That is the kick drum, the bass guitar or bass synth, maybe a low tom if you're using that a lot. But guitars, really, there's not a huge amount underneath those frequencies. The G here is 100 Hertz, so the bottom E is about 70. But actually, it's what goes on. It's all the other harmonics of the guitar that define what a guitar is. So the guitar frequencies, at least for the clean signals, are, you know, between 500 and 5k really. If you roll off too much bass, like below 500, you'll lose some of the body of the guitar and it would sound a bit like this, perhaps. You can see on the display. The bass end has gone, whereas if I just bring it up, just turn the treble down, the bass up a bit, you can see that the bass has returned. Now, of course, it's all about what your ears say. If your ears say, yeah, great, then it's probably great. If they say, oh, I'm not sure about that, there's probably something wrong with it. So, with your guitar recording, just be aware of those frequencies and the fact that the harmonic content of a guitar is very, very rich, especially when you've got distortion on. That's where the treble content of your guitar amp is really going to help you. If you roll off all the treble when you're playing distorted, essentially you've kind of negated the purpose of having a distorted sound in the first place.